Oh, you have one more measure, don't you?
I do.
Let's just take it now real quickly. File item number 9, AB 514. This is due passes. Did you take the amendments on this that we talked about?
I did. We were passing out the mock-up with, we were just trying to settle on a figure that you would support and a dollar figure that CSAC would also support. So I hope this will be of satisfy the chair's needs. I'd like to thank you and your staff for working closely with my office on this bill. This bill would provide counties with more local control for violations of the county's land use and development code by increasing the maximum fine for local ordinance violations. Current law sets the maximum fine at $100 for the first violation, which is too low to incentivize going through the proper permitting process. Instead, it is easier to violate the land codes and pay the low fine. Specifically, AB 514 bases the fine on the severity of the threat to public safety and health and will increase the maximum fine for a first violation to no more than 3 times the permit fee with a cap of $5,000, whichever is less. I think there's been a misconception that it would be for $5,000. For a second and third violation of the same ordinance, the fine will increase. Additionally, the cases where no permit is required and an ordinance is violated, the fine would not exceed $1,000 for the first violation and increases with second and third violation. This creates a reasonable deterrence mechanism and provides counties with more control to enforce local land use and safety ordinances. And we have Monica Miller representing the County of Santa Barbara. The amendments
on this, you know, you wanted, how much do you want for this for the fines? My objection to all this stuff, members, was I'm just sensitive to this fine creep because every judge always, you say what the minimum is, they always give the maximum number, and the numbers always get bigger, and the fines are not really about deterrence, they're about funding government and the alignment of incentives for more and more fines with bigger and bigger numbers. We've seen in the traffic area and in any other area, so I just wanted to create some sensitivity and give some flexibility for the big issues where there's findings that were necessary, but not to just go and fine everybody to death. Where are you guys on the number on this?
Well, just a moment. I wanted to read for the purpose.
What is it?
The change that you recommended, Mr. Chair, and that we agreed to. A county shall not impose an administrative fine to the provision of subparagraph A more than $500 unless the county makes findings in the administrative record that the violation for which the fine is imposed was committed willfully or resulted in an unusual and significant threat to public health and safety, and 2, that the payment of a fine imposed pursuant to the provisions will not place an undue financial hardship on the person responsible for paying the fine.
Everybody okay? I'm okay with that. Everybody okay with that? Anybody have a problem with that? Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair and members, Monica Miller representing the County of Santa Barbara, and we want to thank your staff and you for working so closely with us on this bill. We know it's taken a lot of work, and we really appreciate it. I have with me today Glenn Russell, who's our planning director from the county, to talk about kind of what's going on locally. And again, in taking the amendment, we just want to make sure all parties are satisfied. So
quickly.
Very quickly, thank you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dr. Glenn Russell. I'm the Director of Planning and Development Department for the County of Santa Barbara. We do the code enforcement. In addition, I am currently President of the California County Planning Directors Association. It's an honor to provide testimony to you today in support of Assemblyman Das Williams' AB 514, which proposes to enhance the amount of potential fines that may be levied for violations of zoning and other ordinances. Very briefly, the current state-imposed limitation on the amount of a fine that can be levied on infractions renders their use ineffective in gaining compliance, which is our only goal in certain circumstances. Maximum fine amounts need to be increased to ensure that our communities are safeguarded by enforceable rules. I would like to provide you with a very few examples of why the increase in fines is necessary. One example is a large commercial event, such as a wedding. Depending on the zone district that the wedding occurs in and the number of attendees, such an event either requires a permit or may not be allowed at all.
Is that the Kardashian case?
I'm not naming that case, but yes. We had one such occurrence in the community of Montecito, and state law limited the amount of the fine to $100, which is not a deterrent. The landowner requested that they be able to pay the next fine in advance. Even fines for subsequent illegal events on the same property, which could be $200 or $500, do not have any effect on compliance. Such small amounts are a minor portion of the cost of doing business. I have had land use agents tell me that it is not worth getting a permit when the cost of the fine is so low. Another example is illegal conversion of a non-habitable structure to a habitable space by adding such things as kitchen facilities without permits. This often occurs on a property where the owners wish to rent out an accessory building for habitation. Given the very low fines, there's no disincentive, and taking the risk is easily worth it, sometimes removing and reinstalling kitchen facilities prior to and following an inspection by a code enforcement officer. I should emphasize that we only apply fines infrequently when a notice of violation is ignored. We do not do it to generate revenue. Also, when we find that a fine is necessary, we do not automatically apply the maximum fine, but choose an amount that is appropriate for the severity of the violation. In addition, all fines are appealable. Our goal is not to generate revenue, but rather to gain compliance. Unfortunately, in cases where we are dealing with scofflaws, and we do have them, the current state limits on fine amounts simply do not provide the deterrent necessary to gain compliance and ensure the peace and well-being of our neighborhoods.
In the last year in fines? How much money was imposed in fines?
In the last, do you have that? One moment, please.
Go ahead.
The current state limits on fine amounts simply do not provide the deterrent necessary to gain compliance and ensure the peace and well-being of our neighborhoods and communities. I strongly recommend that you support Assemblyman Williams' proposed AB 514. Thank you, and I am available for questions. We have the information that you request,
We'll get it. Yeah.
I believe, over a 5-year period. Over a 5-year period, we for a 229 issued fines, most of which were waived when compliance was gained. We had approximately, in this a 5-year period, $140,000 was collected in fines.
Others in support?
Steve Cruz on behalf of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors in support.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz.
Dorothy Holzem on behalf of the California State Association of Counties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Lang on behalf of the Napa County and Shasta County Boards of Supervisors in support.
Others in support? Opposition? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and members, John Gamper representing the California Farm Bureau Federation. There's no pleasure in opposing a measure that's intended to stick it to wealthy scofflaws who purposely do not ask for permission for their big parties, thus avoiding permit costs, preferring instead to ask for forgiveness after and paying a modest fine. I want to make it clear that we're not opposed to throwing the book at recidivist permit violators who repeatedly violate zoning ordinances for such things as concert venues. Our concern is hammering the little guy who may not have even known that a permit is required. Most agricultural activities are by right uses in exclusive ag zones, so the measure would have little effect on most husbandry practices that produce our food supply. However, grading ordinances and brush removal ordinances vary significantly by county, and many have different thresholds that may trigger a permit for farming and ranching activities. We're also concerned about the potential impact of increasing fines on brush removal when we have insurance companies in this state that require 3 times the defensible space for residential structures than required by the state. We don't think the county should be discouraging fire prevention activities or creation of defensible space, and the huge fine increases in 514 could do just that. Finally,
with respect to your testimony, you should take a look at the amendments. Could you take a look at the amendments? Because that's what we're trying to do.
They were just proposed.
Yeah, I know. Take a look at them, because I think that's exactly what your testimony is. We're trying to protect the little guy. Give flexibility to government to avoid these big problems and make right findings, but for the little, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So I think that, take a look at it.
I will.
And we're sensitive to that. I think you're right.
If I could just conclude.
Please.
With respect to the inclusion of zoning ordinances in the bill, we'd like to give you an example of just how the high cost of use permits has risen to become a revenue source for local governments. In San Mateo County near Pescadero, one of my members has fenced off various fields in a 750-acre ranching operation. And when the cows are out, when he rotates the cows out of one field for sustainable ranching activities, he allows some dogs from a kennel called Smiling Dogs to come over from San Carlos for a little hiking. The ranch is under the Williamson Act, and the owner figured that dog play was a compatible use because the use had no impact on his livestock activities. so he never thought he needed multiple permits to have the dogs running around in his field. Well, a neighbor complained, and San Mateo County said Smiling Dogs needed a second kennel permit and for the county's permission to allow the dogs to play in the rancher's pastures. Cost $13,052.75. Do we really want to allow the county to add fines on top of such an exorbitant charge? Instead of increasing administrative fines, perhaps the legislature should consider how it could get jurisdictions to reduce permit charges from $8,063 plus a $3,489 public hearing charge plus a $479 IT service surcharge fee and a $598.75 legal counsel surcharge fee to allow dogs to run around in one's own open fields. These fees and surcharges would choke a goat. So as you can see, it's not unusual that someone might decide to ask for forgiveness instead of permission. This bill, should it pass, we can only hope that counties will restrain themselves better from applying these significantly higher fines than they have in levying permit fees. And for these reasons, we respectfully urge your no vote.
But this is maybe smiling dogs, but it ain't smiling owners. This is bad news. I completely agree. But these are fees. These aren't fines. These are permit fees and the like that governments are charging. This is not charging a fine, which is the subject of this bill.
The question is, would you impose another $5,000 on top of that $13,000 because he didn't know he needed a permit?
Let's have a conversation about this. I'll hold on to this and we'll have another conversation because this is an important issue. But this is not about fines. I mean, and we've given discretion. Take a look at the amendments because I think we are trying to protect against this. But this is pretty egregious stuff. We should have a conversation about that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in opposition? Any further questions from the members? You want to close? Oh, we have a question from Senator Morlock.
Sure. Let me just read it. I'm just curious, Mr. Chair, when we have fines like this, why don't we have a CPI clause in the law so that you don't have to come back every 10 years and raise the fees? Why don't we put something in there that it just sort of goes with inflation?
If the senator would like to author something like that, I would be happy to co-author and be your floor manager on the assembly side. I think that would reduce the instance of needing to come back to the legislature. It just has not been done very often with a CPI.
I'm just surprised that someone as talented as you hasn't done it.
Thank you, Senator.
So there must be some.
Well, I want a Republican to do that with. I mean, you know,
Let's go to a probe.
Is there a legal reason why it hasn't been done before? Why don't we have escalation clauses?
It's a good question. Should be escalation clauses should be in everything that we do, so we don't have to keep coming back to this. I completely agree. But you know, maybe talk about it in approach, Mr. Chairman. Do we have a motion? Do you want to close on this?
Just briefly, I just want to say that Santa Barbara is a very, Santa Barbara and Ventura County, my district, is a very agricultural area, it's the largest industry in our counties, and so I, of course, want to meet some of the interest of the Farm Bureau. That is why we did agree to the committee's suggested amendment that the violation for which this fine is imposed has to be committed willfully or result in an unusual or significant threat to the public health and safety, and that if the fine is more than $500, it has to be not place an undue financial hardship on the person responsible for paying the fine. And I think that's responsive to the Farm Bureau's request and a little more precise than a total exemption, which is what they were asking for.
Okay, we have a motion on this? So moved by Senator Lara. With the amendments, yeah, as amended. The motion is do pass as amended to appropriations. Anything further? Secretary, call the roll.
Hertzberg.
Aye.
Hertzberg, aye. Wynn. Bell. Aye. Bell, aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hernandez, aye. Lara. Aye. Lara, aye. Morlock. Havley. Aye. Havley, aye. 5-0.
5-0. Keep it open for absent members. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience, Senators.
File item number 2, AB 43. Chairman Stone.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker Emeritus, very happy to be in front of your committee on a bill, policy area that I know you know very, very well, with California under the supplemental poverty measure having poverty rates of approaching 24%, the highest in the nation. This is a bill, and we know we've had a budget action in this year's budget that significantly addresses poverty in California. So for the first time in a long time, we really have the ability to do something we know moves people at the lowest end of the working spectrum out of poverty. The federal EITC has been demonstrated to really help move people out of poverty, have better incomes, educational incomes, social incomes within their social outcomes within their families because of the benefit that an earned income tax credit has. California, having our own brand of poverty, needs our own brand of solution, and that is why we've proposed an earned income tax credit. The analysis, and I appreciate the analysis, raises some very good questions, and one of which is, why now? But if you look at the budget trailer language that was enacted by this legislature and signed by the governor, it says in it that it would look to enact legislation in order to expand and maintain essentially a framework for an earned income tax credit, so that as we come back on an annual basis and look at appropriate revenues that we might apply to an expanding tax credit, in this context, that we have the ability to do that. And AB 43 is that legislation that gives us the framework within which to have the annual budget discussions about how much we have revenues to afford, how much we want to be able to expand the earned income tax credit, how we want to benefit Californians at the lowest end of the wage scale in the best way that we possibly can. That's what AB 43 is about. The analysis also raises some questions, sort of technical questions about how we move forward on a year-to-year basis with an earned income tax credit. I'm very happy to work with you, Mr. Chair, with your committee and others to make sure that we put in place that framework so that we have a known quantity moving forward and a stable earned income tax credit. That's what AB 43 is about, and I certainly appreciate the governor being willing to fund at such a significant level in EITC in the budget this year. It's a major step forward for California and for California's poor in a program that puts money into the pockets of the people who need it, and in the areas of California that aren't recovering like so many of the other areas across the state. This is a true economic stimulus, a true benefit to get people out of other entitlement programs, get some stability into their lives, into their ability to raise their children. And I have some witnesses in support and request an aye vote. Thank you.
Sir.
Good morning, Chairman Hertzberg and members of the committee. I'm Judy Darnell, and I'm the Vice President of Public Policy for United Ways of California and proud co-sponsor of this bill. Through this year's Budget Act, California has created its first ever state EITC. We thank the leadership and the governor for their commitment. And while this program is a great start, it is only that. And we need to fulfill the promise, which was well stated in the budget trailer bill, to expand EITC to cover more low-income working families. That's what AB 43 does. It creates the necessary framework for expansion, and it gives the enhanced benefit to families with young children. Because our new state EITC program is available only to the extremely low-income part-time workers, individuals that earn less than $6,580 a year, and households with children earning less than $13,870, it will unfortunately help few people climb out of poverty. United Way is very involved in the VITA and EITC outreach, and last year, of all the hundreds of thousands of tax returns that were done, the average gross income was $21,663. So it'll be very hard to reach all these folks. By expanding the income eligibility, over 3 million households could have their financial situation improved rather than the 825 lowest income working households who may benefit from the recently passed EITC program. Families tend to use their EITC refunds to make necessary purchases, such as car repairs, first and last month's rent, or paying off debt, things that help them get to work. The new state EITC would go to help the extremely low-income families struggling to survive, which is good, but we can do better. A state EITC that is aligned with the federal EITC income limits would return big dividends by helping build strong families, more successful children, and a stronger workplace and economy. We were excited to see such a strong bipartisan support for the state EITC. However, we believe that AB 43 combines two elements crucial to the further success. One, the eligibility framework that matches the federal EITC, which sits workers with incomes up to $47,000 for a single parent with 3 or more kids. And 2, enhanced reimbursement for families with at least 1 child under 5 when the impacts of poverty can be the most damaging. This is critical for the many families slightly above the poverty line who earn too little to make ends meet but earn too much to qualify for public benefits. Our United Way research shows that 1 in 3 working families in California earn below the threshold of a basic needs household budget. We look forward to working with the members and Assemblymember Stone to ensure that the promised EITC expansion stated in the budget trailer bill comes to pass sooner rather than later. And AB 43 does help fulfill that promise, and we ask for your aye vote.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, Michelle Stoll-Parvensky, Children's Defense Fund, and we're here in support of AB 43. California has the highest child poverty rate in the nation, with more than 1 in 4 California children living in poverty. Letting a quarter of our children grow up poor prevents them from having the opportunities to succeed in life and robs the state of their future contributions. Fortunately, we know what works to reduce child poverty. The Earned Income Tax Credit is a proven anti-poverty program. AB 43 would build upon the new California EITC implemented through the budget to ensure that the credit reaches more families. Decades of research on the Earned Income Tax Credit show its tremendous benefits. State Earned Income Tax Credits improve the health of mothers, infants, and children, dramatically reduce the likelihood of low birth rates. It promotes educational success. Research shows that state EITCs create higher test scores for children who are receiving them, higher high school graduation rates, and higher college attendance rates. It also breaks the cycle of poverty. The benefits of the EITC extend beyond 1 generation by increasing earnings when children reach adulthood. For children raised in low-income families, increases in family income are associated with higher earnings once they're adults. The first ever California EITC recently passed through the budget is a great beginning step. And CDF was pleased that the budget trailer bill indicated the legislature's intent to continue to extend and expand the credit to benefit more families. AB 43 offers the opportunity to build a policy framework for expanding that credit to reach all households that are currently receiving the federal Earned Income Tax Credit, which will maximize the impact that this has on child poverty. Currently, the state credit would only reach families making up to $13,800 per year, leaving out millions of California families. The credit is targeted at families in deep poverty, which is a critical focus given the impact that we know deep poverty has on children. But if we want to actually lift families out of poverty, the credit must be expanded to more families, such as those who are just below the poverty line. One of the proven benefits of the EITC is that it incentivizes and rewards work. But the current credit only applies to those that are part-time workers. And so we would encourage expanding the credit to reach those who are working full-time so we can really take advantage of that incentive. Another important element of AB 43 is that it provides an enhanced credit for households with with children under age 5. We know that the first 5 years of life are the most rapid period of brain development. They're also the years that children are most likely to be in poverty and most likely to be in deep poverty. Providing more family resources during this critical developmental period pays off dramatically. One study found that children in low-income families that receive an additional $3,000 per year between birth and age 5 earn 17% more as adults than similar children who did not receive that added income. California cannot afford to continue allowing 1 in 4 children to grow up in poverty, harming their health and well-being and undermining their future academic and economic success. I urge you to support AB 43.
Thank you so much. Any further advocates in support?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Frank Mecca, Executive Director of the County Welfare Directors Association, in support.
Thanks so much.
Hi. Good morning. Kevin Aslan, Coalition California Welfare Rights Organizations, in strong support. Thank you.
Latoya Ramsey, National Association of Social Workers, California Chapter, in support.
Thank you.
Karen Lang, on behalf of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, Mayor Edwin Lee, and also the Napa County Board of Supervisors, in support.
Thank you very much.
Michael Radigan, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, Santa Clara County, in support.
Nicole Wortelman, on behalf of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors and Ventura County Board of Supervisors, in support.
Thank you.
John Bowders, on behalf of Housing California and Homeless Service Providers across California, in support. Linda Warner with the California Catholic Conference in strong support.
Jim Lindberg, Friends Committee on Legislation of California, in support.
Opposition to this measure? Seeing, hearing none. Questions among the members? Senator Laura?
You know, I'm going to support this, but I just want to be realistic about the impact of the current budget play that we did on ITC. This is not the answer to poverty. I think where the average is, they're going to get $150 to $200. So I just want to, you know, I understand what we're trying to get at, but people that are living in deep poverty, especially children, this is not the answer to poverty. I mean, $200, $150 is, in my opinion, not going to really make a difference. It's a good start, but I think we also have to be more cognizant of just poverty issues in general and how we're going to get to it. I think this is one of many strategies, but I think if we really want to be serious about addressing poverty issues, we can't give a family living in deep poverty $150 to $200 and say we've cured poverty. So I mean, this is not a knock on your issues. I think your goal is laudable, but I think we as a legislature need to really sit down and really talk about how we actually address poverty in the state and try to rebuild our middle class. And so that's just me on my soapbox, but I appreciate your efforts today.
No, and Senator, I completely agree. And the AB 43 is founded on the research done by PPIC and the LAO, and to fully fund AB 43 would actually put $2,000 to $3,000 in those families' pockets, in addition to the federal EITC of maybe $5,000 to $7,000. That's where we get some real benefit. I think the step that we did in the budget this year, acknowledging the need for and opening up a program for EITC, and then having that conversation, which is why I think AB 43 is so important, to allow us to then start to expand, collect information on the benefits that those kids and those poor families are receiving, then we can put some real money into it and start to move people out of poverty through a program like this. But you're right, we do need to be looking at other measures that help as well.
Senator Bell.
I think it's a fact that if a state has earned income tax credit program, that more people will apply for the federal program in that state, and that's why I think this is a good idea in terms of, stimulating interest in the federal program as well as the state program, because I think it's a proven fact that when you have a state program, we'll get more participation of eligible people to participate in the federal program. And I understand how many people that are eligible are not using the federal program today. I mean, it's a large number, right?
There is a large number. The uptake rate is not as high as we would like. And in the governor's proposal, in the budget that we passed, it would be good to have more money allocated to outreach and education, and that is something that United Way and others are doing through the VITA program to get out to people to let them know. And the program that's in the budget will benefit taxpayers who don't often file, and if we can, a taxpayer who does file and has the opportunity to go and talk to a VITA program or to a commercial tax preparer, we have a better chance of having that conversation. So we have a lot of outreach we need to do for to increase the federal uptake, but also ensure that Californians who need the existing EITC take advantage of it.
What's the estimate of the amount of people that haven't filed for the federal program in California that are eligible? Do you have a
1.3 million?
I honestly, I can get that to you. I don't have that number in front of me.
I think it's in the millions of people, right?
I think it's about 30% of those that are eligible. That aren't taking advantage of the federal EITC.
That's a huge number.
And we expect that most of those are below the income limit that is required to file taxes. And we have a request into the IRS to get that wage distribution to find out and be able to prove that.
Mr. Chairman, I think if we get those people to apply for the federal program,
$1.3 billion outstanding uncollected in California.
That just brings out money right into the state government and
that's
the state economy, and California would benefit in terms of the money that would have a multiplier effect in our communities from that economic activity. So I think if we have these federal programs, we ought to do a better job of getting people to participate.
Anything further for the members? Yeah, I just wanted to say, look, this set a framework. I think it's a smart idea. I thank you for the United Way. You guys are a stellar organizations, always on the top of good stuff. But, Yeah, I mean, it takes the next step and puts in statute what a framework is that hopefully we'll be able to fund with this governor and future governors as we move along that path to spend my estimates is $1.6 billion. Our analysis says $2 billion this program would cost, but it's the right thing to do. So, anything? Do you want to say in the close, Mr. Chairman?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ask for your support.
We have a motion on this. So moved by Senator Bell. Secretary called. Did you have a question? Wait, I'm sorry, sir.
Question. I just want to
please
state that I want to stay consistent with my prior votes on the earned income credit, that I'm concerned about credits again and trying to make sure the state budget is balanced and that we.
Yeah, but the only thing, this measure doesn't put any money in. It says subject to the budget. So what it does, it sets up the statutory framework to establish the program on perpetuity and then each time you look at it in the budget to make a determination. So there is no dollar amount. It really does go to the issue that you're concerned about. It does involve the discussions we have really respect that larger issue because it doesn't fund any money. It just sets the framework so a governor can fund it if they so choose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Bill has been moved by Senator Bell. Secretary, call the roll.
Hertzberg.
Aye.
Hertzberg, aye. Nguyen. Bell. Bell, aye. Hernandez. Laura. Aye. Laura, aye. Morlock. Havley. Aye. Havley, aye. 4-0.
Keep that open for you, sir. Get the absent.
Thank you,
members.
Senator.
Thank you so much. Anything else?